Commencing the technical session of this workshop. Please, those of us outside still taking tea, kindly hurry up and come in. We will start at exactly 6 minutes past 12. So please do come in now and be seated. Our panelists are here. The moderator of the session is here. The chairman of the ICPC, the secretary of the ICPC are both here. Please let us come in so we can have a robust discussion. The time is 6 minutes past 12 and we are starting. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. To discuss the keynote address and other issues related to the theme of this workshop, we have a panel of very informed discussants whom I will be calling to this side of the hall to sit down and thereafter I will call on the moderator of the session who will guide the discussions. In no particular order, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome to the discussion side of the hall Honorable Mrs. Blessing Chigeru Amadi, DSSRS. This way. Permit me to also welcome Professor Salim Bashir Magaji, Dean, Faculty of Law, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Before they used to say professors were old people. This one is a very young professor. Permit me to welcome Mrs. Azuka Ogugwo, FNIPR, Head, Reforms and Servicom, ICPC. Let us welcome the Executive Lead of Gender Mobile Initiative, Omawumi Ogunrotimi Esquire. I saw him a while ago. Okay. Let us welcome the founder, CEO, Connected Development, Mr. Hamzat Lawal. Now that all the discussants are seated, permit me to call on the moderator for this discussion, Mr. Moyosora Onigbanjo, SAN. Mr. Moderator, sir, I hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chairman, ICPC, all other distinguished guests, the very esteemed and very rich panel of discussants, I bid you welcome to this session. Let me start by firing the first shot. We can say, in a manner of speaking, that there is a battle for the soul of Nigerian youths. This battle is between the forces of corruption and the forces of anti-corruption. And this kind of roundtable is necessary if we want to win the battle for the minds, the bodies, and the soul of our youths. So I go to Omaomi Ogunrotimi, who is from the civil society. Kindly share your perspective on the effect of corruption on Nigerian youths.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Leonard Silk, for firing the first shot at me. So to the question on the effect of, corruption on Nigerian youth, I particularly like that question because the youth demography is an heterogeneous group, so which means it also cuts across, young women and also young men. So first I would say that young people and women, young men and young women are disproportionately burdened by corruption. Essentially because if you look at most of the sectors that actually feel the heat of corruption, young men and young women are active players or active recipients or beneficiaries of the sector. And just to make it really relatable, especially when I think about it through the lens of the work that I do, I'll take an example of the education sector, where a lot of times the currency of exchange is sex. When you think about gender-based corruption, what this does is that it further enhances disparity in terms of educational access. And even when you think about enrollment in higher education institutions, in secondary schools, and maybe in primary schools, you realize that a lot of times nepotism and bribery take center stage in how people get admitted into higher education institutions and secondary schools. And what this does is that it robs the system of merit. And also, when you look at it more holistically, you realize that that in itself could undermine the employment opportunity prospects of a lot of people. Need I say that sexual harassment, which we all refer to as sextortion, impacts both young men. A lot of times, young men are secondary victims of sexual harassment. It also impacts young women. A lot of times, again, young women sometimes have to discontinue education because of the burden of sexual harassment. So this in itself impacts the human capital development of Nigeria as a nation. But I also must say that these problems are also global, so which means that it transcends national borders. But as a country, as an African nation, and as the giant of Africa, it behoves on us to ensure that we get more proactive, we get more preventive than reactionary and reactive. And that is one of the reasons why I would also commend the ICPC under the leadership of the Senior Advocate of Nigeria. By every standard, you'd see that comparatively is youthful, and I guess that largely accounts for the kind of leadership that he has demonstrated so far. To see that in terms of prevention, there is the University System Study Review, which is, one of the organs within the ICPC, which also impacts young people. Because by the time systems are reviewed, then you can adopt a systemic approach to address this as a systemic problem. Second also is that you see young people at the center of anti-corruption efforts. I know for a fact that across Nigerian universities there is Actus, which also centers the leadership and participation of young people. And there are also, an array of other initiatives championed by the ICPC, and I hope that other agencies of government would also follow through to see that they center the leadership, the participation, the expertise, the unique needs of young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I go to Mr. Amzat Lawal, who is popularly known as Amzi, right? You're a global citizen. You work a lot with the UN. You've done a lot of work with SDGs. Can you tell us, in the international space, what lessons can we import to protect the vulnerable in our society, the women and our youths?
Well, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I think that I would flip it. And I think the world needs to come and learn from us. And I'll tell you why. We have the Open Government Partnership that this government have signed up onto that allows for civil society and government to collaborate. And we've seen instances where the leadership of ICPC, for instance, would do joint investigation and even joint action working with civil society and even taking investigation with journalists. I've seen how this has helped block leakages and help government recover resources. Yesterday, we've launched Follow the Money, which is the initiative I started over 13 years ago in Sierra Leone, which is the 13th country that we've established our presence in the continent. And these are examples of how young people are leveraging on technology, how there are growing interests, not only by United Nations, but also the Council of Europe, where Nigeria is not even a member country, saying, how are you doing it working with institutions like ICPC? What are the lessons, what are the gaps, and how are you taking it to other countries, and what can we learn from it? We've seen cases where the Canadian High Commission would say, can you come to Canada and teach us how you work on open government partnership? Because again, when you talk about corruption, it's not only a Nigerian problem or an African problem, but I think that we don't see some of these successes a lot. And that's why people would think we need to go and learn from what people are doing. Rather, we have homegrown solutions. We have lessons learned. We have well-documented experiences. I think we must share this. We must amplify this. Because one, this would help inspire other young people. This would put in place preventive measures. I know ICPC is big on preventive. And I think this would also help us as a people to change that narrative about our people, our culture, our practices. And I think, I think that with the leadership we have today at ICE, it's inspiring. Like my sister said, he's young, he's visionary, and it's very simple. You can tell when we're having tea break. People like him, a lot of people will not approach, but he was approaching everybody, just wanting to even learn, listen, and reorganize what should become a vision that women and young people should tie into. So for me, I think we should take this not only to our 704 local governments, but take it across the African Union, the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and other multilaterals. Show these lessons and show that truly homegrown can become something global that the world will celebrate while taking lessons from Nigeria.
Thank you very much. So for Hamza, what he's saying is that we should tell our own stories. We should sing our song, and we should, take our solutions to the world. I now go to the member of the Federal House of Representatives, Barrister Blessing Amadi. She represents the Port Harcourt 2 Federal Constituency. Honorable member, as we address you, is there anything we can do with our laws in Nigeria to protect women more, to protect youths more? I asked this question because during the keynote address, I couldn't help but note when the keynote speaker said, in Rwanda, women in their parliament, women have 61% representation. I know there was a time the National Assembly was toying with the idea of amending the Constitution to reserve a certain number of seats in parliament for women. And also, I remember the not so young to run bill that was passed recently into law. So can you just shed some light on this for us? Thank you.
Thank you very much, my learned friend and the coordinator of this program, my fellow panelists, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Before I start, I want to say something about what my sister said. Just 1 second. I'm talking about sexual harassment. I was a lecturer in the University Faculty of Law and a member of the Sexual Harassment Committee. At times, the students harass these lecturers. And at the end of the day, you can imagine where a married woman would ask a lecturer, pay for a hotel to sleep with him all just to get a mark. I think the sexual harassment is a two-way thing, not just coming from the lecturers. The students also induce them by the way they dress. Well, in the National Assembly, a few months ago, we passed the second reading of the bill on the preservation of seats for the women in the National Assembly and state assemblies too. We also we are in the verge of amending the Constitution to take care of that because it's a constitutional issue. We're all fighting for women to come up and be recognized in Nigeria. But the problem we have, even the day we passed that bill, we are out of 16 members in the House, only 2 of us were there. The women are not serious. In fact, the men are the people helping us to ask for these things. I don't know why the women are not serious, and I want to employ the National Council of Women Societies to have an advocacy on women to come together and fight for their rights. They are not serious. No, it's true. That is the truth. Then we are making laws to put in place the protection of women and youths, particularly the orphans and the less privileged in society, so that they are not used as tools. Severally, we've gone to NAPTIP. We have oversight functions. We are looking at what they are doing to help our girls and women. Then they have the Women Commission. They have the Center for Women, Miriam Babangida Center. We've been there, we visited there. We frowned at a place where they built a hostel for girls. These are vulnerable girls. I mean, they have an apartment where people can rent and stay, and you want men to come there and sleep, and what happens to these girls who are helpless, who are also by the hostels? These are some of the issues, too, we have to tackle, because in our oversight functions, we go around and do reports, send back to them, asking them to embrace the spirit of oneness and to resist the temptation of corruption. Because when you do that, because you want to get money, you want to raise funds through these lodgements, what do you do with the funds? But they've set up those buildings to protect our children. We must resist that temptation. And I don't know whether there's anybody from the Women Commission, Women Affairs Ministry. I want them to do more. They should collaborate with us in the house to help them, assist these women. There are so many of them. I mean, there are cases of women trafficking and all forms of vices against our girls all over the country, and we have a duty to protect them. We are really making laws. There are so many bills on women who only want to plead with it. Luckily or unluckily, our mother is gone. We are pleading with her to even help us advance the bills already pending on the husband's table. Thank you very much.
Your plea to her will not go unanswered.
Thank you, sir.
Because I know that the ICPC is putting together a communique, which I'm sure will be forwarded to her, and she will see your views and treat them accordingly. Okay. I now go to Mrs. Ogugwa of the ICPC. The honorable member of the Federal House of Representatives touched on a very raw subject just now, the issue of sexual abuse, especially against vulnerable women and also youths. Many people, when you say corruption, I think the first thing that comes to mind is financial corruption. But it covers more than just misappropriation of funds. What is your organization, the ICPC, doing when it comes to protecting our women and the vulnerable members of our society against sexual exploitation, sexual abuse, sex trafficking, and what have you?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. ICPC has actually done a lot, is still doing a lot in that sense, because we recognize that, like you said, corruption is not just a financial issue. There is also the issue of moral corruption, which is maybe at the back of even the financial corruption. You have to have a mindset of taking a privilege that is not yours for you to ever get involved in a corrupt act. And like you said, the honorable member has mentioned the issue of sexual corruption. ICPC has also done a lot of work on that. When we train students, when we have engagements with students, tertiary institutions, and we did have one about 2 days ago, we had some engagements with some tertiary institutions. One of the things we amplify in our conversations is the need to have access to ICPC, to come to us, to discuss with us. We make available our toll-free numbers and even our personal numbers for them to reach us if they see anything, if they are experiencing anything that can in any way affect their studies. Because it's actually very painful when you think that these students look up to lecturers. They should be their role models. They should be the ones to protect them. They should be their surrogate parents in the schools. And these same people they look up to end up being the ones to exploit them, to abuse them. And that is why the Commission does not take it lightly when there are cases of reports of sexual abuse and corruption. We work with NGOs like Gender Mobile Initiative, that's Omoumi here, to make sure that we see an end to these things. There are many things ICPC has done, sir. Just give me some time. We have drafted, we have come up with a draft model anti-corruption policy that we distributed to schools, both secondary schools and tertiary institutions, to use, because we looked at their sexual harassment policies, and some of them had a lot of loopholes that can be exploited to get away with it. And so we came up with a draft of a model, and that was launched, and we have shared it among tertiary institutions and secondary schools, and we're like, use this model of sexual harassment policy so that everybody will be covered, everybody will be protected, the students and the lecturers. And then we Also, of course, enforcement is our core mandate because, like was said here, without enforcement, you can't actually prevent. We have a few examples of enforcement. The one that readily comes to mind is Professor Richard Akindele of University of Ife, who was prosecuted and convicted for having harassed a student that he was supervising. And he has gone to jail for that. There is also an ongoing case we are working on, and there are many other cases in tertiary institutions. A dean of a faculty of law we are actually in court with, that it's very disheartening to hear such stories, that the students, the female students, all rose up to say, we don't want this man, it's too much, it has gone on long enough. And so, knowing that we cannot do it on our own, we take time to talk to the students to say, you can come to ICPC, talk to us. We will give you as much protection as we can, and we will make sure we see the end of these cases, because these are fathers that are supposed to protect you, that are supposed to see you as their daughters. If they exploit you, who can protect you? If your father exploits you, who can protect you? And so we take it very seriously that cases of sexual harassment, sextortion in tertiary institutions in particular, not always in institutions, also at workplaces, are seen to a logical conclusion by the Commission. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I now go to a man I only just met this morning, but of whom I immediately became a great fan of his. And I tell you why. You know, when I was in school, when they say dean of any faculty, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing somebody like my grandfather. You know, gray hair, gray beard like my own, and all that. And so when Professor Magashi walked up to me this morning, I couldn't believe that he's the dean of the faculty, of the very reputable faculty of law of one of Nigeria's foremost universities, Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria. Please help me acknowledge the youngest dean of faculty of law in Nigeria, Professor Magashi. I mean, it shows us all what you can attain as a young person. You know, you don't have to think that you need to have gray beard and be using a walking stick before you attain to any position. Now, to whom much is given, much is expected. So the question for you, sir, is that should we be legislating to say if the National Assembly has so many seats, a fixed percentage must be kept for women, or a certain percentage must be kept for youths? Or should we let this be an organic thing? Should we just change our mindset, change our cultures, and allow for more representation in the parties? Or should it be something that Parliament just passes something like a decree and say from Kaduna State, for example, you must bring 20 women to the Federal House of Representatives? What is your take on this?
Thank you very much for this privilege. I think it is a difficult one because in reality, some of these things have to be earned. And Nigeria is a cosmopolitan country with a lot of divisions, a lot of persuasions, which actually requires us to look at these issues critically and depending on the space involved. But importantly, what I want us to understand is that there's a fundamental problem with this country, which is that we have inherited a negative orientation from a very long time in the past. And this, unfortunately, is affecting us negatively in such a way that it even affects our perception and even our acceptance of certain realities. Just by way of example, I became a dean of law. Incidentally, for the first time in a faculty of law that has a lot of traditions, unopposed. And just 2 days ago, one of the professors that commented during the recent elections made a statement and called that experience a paradigm shift. Now, what is the paradigm shift? I was elected dean for the second time unopposed. This is a faculty that has a lot of elders, a lot of senior professors, but yet they sat down there and accepted me to be the dean. So the truth of the matter is these things have to be earned. How was I able to do this? I have a military background, luckily for me, and with the military, it's always about discipline and learning all the time. So perhaps that helped me in ensuring that I humbly followed instructions. When everybody was running away from a responsibility, I was there to volunteer to do it. And before you know it, everybody saw me, so to speak, as a workaholic. And truly, with my privileged background, I must say, that was also something that people thought will not be possible from somebody with such a background. And luckily for me, I was able to earn this respect and earn the leadership of the faculty. And for the past 2 years that I have been dean, we have enjoyed the absolute peace that has never been enjoyed in the faculty. Why? Because I respected the elders, I commanded the respect of my colleagues, and I was able to carry everybody along. This is one thing about having young people in leadership positions, particularly if they are not overtly overzealous and lack humility. You listen, you learn from the experiences of elders. So if we want to give women and youth opportunity, we have to earn it. We have to show that we are ready and able to take these leadership roles. And of course, it will not be completely out of place if we are able to delimit or earmark certain percentage of seats for that purpose. But of course, we have to learn and we have to earn these responsibilities.
Thank you very much. You did not disappoint at all. I go back to Omaomi. So how do we in Nigeria attain that, let me go back to the Rwandan 61% representation, gender representation in their parliament? How do we attain gender equality in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for that question. We can attain gender equality through a number of pathways. I mean, we can do that via legislation, no doubt. But I think that a more viable way to, actually attain that is by causing a shift in social norms. We live in a society where there is some level of societal or social expectation for women. And even when I look at it more broadly, when you talk about women and young people championing anti-corruption efforts, you'd realize that by virtue of the social norms obtainable, women are not allowed to challenge authority. And as such, when they see corrupt practices, that in itself may stifle their voices because they are not supposed to, be vocal about issues. And when they do that, there are social repercussions for that, especially in communities where there's a lot of rigidity when it comes to social norms. So I think that first off, we need to cause a transformation or a major shift in social norms. We need to dismantle patriarchal structures and systems. And we all experience patriarchy in our workplaces. I mean, patriarchy is that monster that stares us in the face on a daily. Patriarchy makes people or men even feel entitled to the bodies of women. Patriarchy makes an educator, for example, say that I want to have sex with you, and until you have sex with me, you're not going to graduate from this institution. It is patriarchy, and it continues to hamper gender equality effort. And just to say, the honorable member did mention earlier that some women are responsible for sexual harassment incidents because of how they dress. We know for a fact that there are enabling factors. People might say that inappropriate dressing may enable it, but the one cause of sexual harassment is the harasser himself or herself. And the truth is that sexual harassment, cuts across both gender. And I did mention earlier that men also sometimes they are secondary victims. But we have to be very careful of not, furthering the narrative that indecent dressing is a major cause of sexual harassment, because we have a lot of babies on the street, we have mad people on the street who are undressed, and people do not sexually harass them. And so it's important that we carry on with that notion that sexual harassment is not justifiable on any ground. More so that educators occupy a fiduciary relationship. And that is why there's a lot of, advocacy that we need to put policies in place that would create that framework of ethical infrastructure where everyone within environments of learning or even spaces characterized by power asymmetry can assume the social responsibility of preventing and ending sexual harassment. Another way we can attain gender equality is to also ensure that in spaces where we find ourselves as a woman, as a man, we need to continually advocate for gender equitable policies. Amzat is here, is doing that through the code platform. I am here seated today. I think the only way or the major reason why I'm here today is because of my active involvement in ensuring that I facilitate spaces for young women and men to ensure that they are also a part of decision-making processes. So I would say that it's a combination of several factors, and we need to get to a point where we're thinking holistically to ensure that we look at value-based approach, we look at compliance-based approach, we look at participation-based approach, and we also look at risk management-based approach. A combination of these four approaches would get us closer to that utopia of, achieving a gender equitable world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Omaomi. Hamzat, the keynote speaker told us this morning that according to a United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime estimate, corruption costs Nigeria a whopping $1.5 billion US dollars annually, while the National Bureau of Statistics reported that 721 billion naira was received as bribes by Nigerian public officials in 2023 alone. That is scary. Now, the victims of these humongous amounts taken from the public purse are the Nigerians, most especially the vulnerable ones, the women and the youths. How do we turn the vulnerable members of our society from being just mere victims to becoming the solution of this corruption vicious circle?
I think the biggest power is access to information. Because for you to even get justice, you need access to information. And information gives you knowledge to demand and ask the right questions using data. And data have showed it clear how corruption has impacted us. And I think for 2023, why the figures are high is also due to the politics of 2023. And tie this to the question you asked the Dean for faculty in ABU. So when you tie this together, it also gives you a picture about how would women and youths play in politics when it is about your war chest with his money. So, but for me, I'm quite excited about a few things. One is the fact that we've seen organizations like ICPC have clubs in secondary schools. And they focus on integrity, values, and changing that mindset and narrative. And we've seen the impact on even adults, who are their mentors, who are their teachers, and also the family circle. Because we see now pupils in this school challenge their parents at home because of what they have been taught. Also with the ICPC, with the NYSC, we've seen the outreach in NYSC camps and how this is translated to when they are posted to some of these communities and also forming groups within the NYSC cohort. I think what we need to do is to scale this. And how can we now start having conversation with the people we regularly call thugs or touts, or the people in motor parks, the people in markets that you would call agberu? Because for society to change, even if we engage in behavioral change, you need them. Every stakeholder counts. And for you to get them is to sit with them, understand their thought process, have this conversation, and share knowledge and information. We've seen people's life transform just because they have information. And I think if we can do this on a larger scale, while also setting a benchmark to monitor and take back M&E with data. Because again, before we start, there must be a needs assessment. And as we go forward, we continue to engage and take data on what are the changes that is happening, what are we learning, and how can we continue on that larger scale. I think if we can do this, while putting data and information on the front burner, I think the Nigerian people would have a change of mindset and continue to support effort like that of the ICPC, working with civil society, the academics, and most importantly, the media to amplify to a larger audience.
Thank you very much, Hamza. My honorable member of the Federal House of Representatives, the perception amongst Nigerian youths and women and indeed all Nigerians is that one of the problems that Nigeria faces, of course, is corruption in the executive, corruption in the judiciary, corruption in the National Assembly. Being a member of the National Assembly, how do you think that corruption in the National Assembly has impacted or has stifled growth of our youths and our women in Nigeria? And if you agree that corruption has done these damages, what solutions would you prefer?
Thank you very much. As a member of the House, I'm a first timer. They will say high-ranking members. I just came in there, left the university system and went into the House. We've seen how we're operating. First of all, every year, the agencies present their budgets, which we look at and approve. After a while, we go for what we call oversight functions to see whether they are working in terms with what we saw and what in the budget and what is on ground. And at times, we invite them for questioning, investigation, and all that. We're working very hard. And the members, each member will have what we call our budgets in the agencies. In fact, for the past 3 weeks, I've been having trainings in my constituency on entrepreneurship for youths and women. I hold town hall meetings with them too to teach them what they should do as human beings, not just waking up to say, please send me 200,000, I have my birthday party to celebrate. I will tell them, your birthday party, I've never celebrated mine, so you have to get something to do. What do you do? We've been encouraging them to know that there should be value for every kobo you give to them, not just going to drink or, going to the clubs. we have the corruption, anti-corruption committees too. If members are indicted for anything, they are invited. They are human beings. Nobody is perfect. We're doing our best. We're looking at what everybody is doing in Nigeria. We're talking of the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and whatever we can do, we do it to the best of our ability and try to educate people to change in their ways. I think what I want to suggest here is that after this ceremony, I mean, we should have town hall meetings in all the states. I've seen that you have branches of ICPC to help us. We are ready. We have been doing it. I've been doing it. We've been doing it in our constituencies. It's very, very important. But one thing is clear, and that the youths should change. They should learn. They should have role models. They should not think that to be prominent in the society is for you to commit a crime and live big above your means. And the women too, we've interacted with them. If you go to the market, corruption is there. You want to buy beans, they pad the cup. You go to the mechanic, you want to do something, you get your tire retreated ones, all kinds of things. Everybody is involved in this corruption, in these practices. But we are preaching and we are making laws. But what do? We continue to talk, to speak to their minds, whether they can change for good. We are not sleeping in the house. If you have cases of corruption, also write to the house. We move a motion, we investigate. We prosecute too. We recommend to the, what's the name now? The other committees, I mean the Judiciary Committee, we have the Justice Committees, we have all other committees too, to take care of such things. Please send motion, petitions to us. We are going to act on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So if you look at your program, this session is scheduled for 60 minutes, and we are about exhausting it. We will use the remaining time just to take what I'll call parting shots from the esteemed panelists. I start with Mrs. Okugwa. What would you like to impact this session with? What would you like to inspire the youths and the women here with as your parting and final shot from this session?
Thank you, sir. Well, like we say in ICPC, the fight against corruption is not for the commission alone. While we talk about the forms of corruption, the effects of corruption, we also, first of all, would like to discourage people from corruption. There are many causes, and one of the causes is what people call the necessity of corruption, as in being pushed to the wall and now having no option, feeling that they have no option than to be corrupt. One of my parting shots would be, please don't. Please don't. You don't need to be. As a young person, there is always an option. There is always a way out. One of the ways out, and I'm talking to both young people and the older people here, is mentoring. Some of the older people, you have gone through a lot, you have seen a lot, you have experienced a lot, and you have a lot to share in your communities, in your churches, mosques, and society with younger people. Be a mentor to young people. Mentor a teen, mentor a young adult today. You will actually add a lot of value to them if they know you are available to listen and to hear their challenges. Example is a young person I was working with. He was driving me when I go to the east, and suddenly he's telling me, oh, send me your account number and I'll send you some money. And I'm like, how? Where? From where? And he suddenly blocked me. So I know that he has now gotten into some shady businesses. Be that person that looks out for young people. And as a young person, there is no excuse. Don't. Okay? And then be a peer educator wherever you find yourself. Nobody can say, I don't have anything to offer. Be a peer educator. Be the one that uses technology, uses the social media, uses music, drama, skits, animations, all these tools we have on our smartphones. Be that person that uses these tools to train other young people and say, look, let us get people reporting corruption, let us fight corruption, let us expose corruption, and form clubs, form associations like Connected Development. Be those people that go and track projects in your communities. If you see a project is going on, follow the money, track the project, and report back to ICPC. There is really a lot I can say. Don't let yourself be a victim. Be a fighter. Fight corruption. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those wonderful words. As the other panelists ruminate over their parting shots to us, I think one thing that we cannot re-emphasize enough is that, so in Nigeria, every time we have all these talk shops, we have all these roundtables on the problems of Nigeria, how to curb corruption. But most of what we say ends up just as talk. It doesn't translate to action. It doesn't result in the change that we want. For example, if you look at the audience, when Her Excellency, the First Lady, was here, they all was fuller than this. A lot of people have left. It just shows you what is going on in our society. So to Hamza, how do we, translate all this talk into real action on the ground?
Corruption talk is not sexy. It's not like entertainment that everybody wants to jump on. And the truth is, young people have very limited attention span. I think we need to start thinking creatively. How can we mobilize people in entertainment to educate and mobilize young people to take action? I can tell you for free that I think I've written over 100 petitions to ICPC, and each and every one of them, they will call me to come and endorse and provide evidence. And we've seen cases where they've prosecuted on our behalf and even put people behind bars. We've also written petitions to National Assembly, interestingly, not only on corrupt cases, but also cases around integrity. And because, again, when the president would nominate, if he nominates people with questionable characters, we write National Assembly and provide evidence with backing, and we go for some of these hearings to back our points, because, again, it's about our country and how we can make it better. So I think we need to find creative ways to organize, to mobilize, because the most important constituents are women and young people. And when you look at it demographically or even politically, they're the force to reckon with. So I think we just have a lot of work to do as frontliners who are the ICPCs, as academians who are the think tanks, as civil society who are the opposition voice. Not opposition, but you know what I mean. How can we come together and work with lawmakers and work, with different actors to engage, organize, educate younger people to take an interest. And not just for a short span, but take a long-term interest. Because the fight against corruption, it's a long-term work, So I think if we can find a creative way to engage them, because the Gen Zs are even faster than us. I am playing catch-up with the Gen Z, because I'm not a Gen Z. I see myself as old, even if I don't have beards. So how can we get creative content, knowledge and information to these very mobilely upward, fast-growing young people who wants to challenge status quo, but they don't know how to go about it?
Thank you so much for that. I love the thoughts you shared about getting creative, not doing the same thing over and over when we're not getting results, and finding a way to penetrate the mindsets of the Gen Zs. Thank you very much. Omaome, I don't know if you fall into that Gen Z category, but so what thoughts would you like to leave with us as we wrap up this session?
Thank you, Lynette Silk. I think I would wrap up by saying that, and by charging everyone in the room, to say that the buck does not start, neither does it end at the table of young people, because the youth demography is just a microcosm of the broader, population. And as such, when young people advocate on a broader scale towards ending corruption, they still go back to their workplaces, they still go back to the labor market, and they mingle with the broader population. So this, would also bring me to the thought around what we call the tone at the top principle. It's important that at a broader level, we look at this from a value-based angle. Laws and legislations are fantastic, but it's important that we cultivate a leadership that values ethics, that values integrity, that values accountability. Because leaders would cultivate values and culture within the workplace, within the marketplace. And as such, when young people find themselves in such spaces, they have no choice than to adapt to the culture within that environment. And to what Mrs. Azuka said about, the principle around necessity, I think that is actually rooted in a very interesting theory, which is called the game theory. The game theory on corruption prevention actually offers a lot of explanation on why, corruption is really systemic, especially when you look at it within the public procurement process. And I'll give you a relatable example. You see private sector individuals, they bid for contracts. And then as a contractor within the private sector, I come to your company as a public office holder, and you tell me that I have to bribe you. Now, usually I would not take lightly to that. But because I might actually be outsmarted by another private sector person who comes into the room and plays ball, and as such, I'm seen out of the way or out of the door. So that way, there are too many advantages of not wanting to indulge in corrupt practices because there are other people doing it. Which again brings me to the final thought around collective action. Ending corruption or ending corrupt practices is a collective responsibility. So I'm urging older people in the room. Yes, you've gone ahead of us as the oldies, but again, we would ride on your shoulders to sanitize the system of corrupt practices. So this is cheers to working together as a collective as we walk through this long path to freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Mrs. Amadi, please, what can this session take away from you regarding this issue of corruption affecting the vulnerable in our society? Your parting shots or thoughts?
Thank you very much. I want to plead with us here, the women and the youths, please have something to do for a living. First of all, you must be productive, engage in one form, or if you don't have a job, one form of entrepreneurship or whatever, so they have some little money for you to pay to go to where you are going to advocate for zero corruption. If you don't have anything in your hand and you go, you'll be involved in a corruption problem. That is, it's natural. And particularly the women too, we plead with them. In my constituency, for instance, they allocate a shop to a woman to stay and trade. Because she's lazy, she sells it and goes home, crosses her legs, and she'll be going about, what can she offer to the society? The women should be hardworking and be productive. In the societies where we are now, we should be able to preach to our fellow human beings to not to engage in corrupt practices because it's affecting our lives. We are talking about going to the hospitals, not getting adequate care because the money had been tampered with. The universities, their budgets are given, and you won't see what had been spent. What was brought in 2021 is represented in 2024, and you have, when you applied for 3 computers last year, you want the same 3 computers this year. Did you buy the one we approved last year? everybody should think of this corruption, how it is affecting us. And we must also know that we have a duty at home, like the speaker said, to start from there and appeal to our family members, our children, our brothers and sisters, our parents, to tell them the evil side of corruption. But government has a lot to do to make sure that persons involved in corrupt practices are punished accordingly. That will set the pace for eradication of corruption in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. To Professor and the Dean of Faculty, given that our demographics show us that 60% of our population are youths and women, how do we empower this mass of our population who right now are powerless?
Thank you very much for that. I think a lot of things have been said by the other panelists about different issues that actually affect and discourage corrupt practices. But importantly, I made a statement during my opening remark that we have a lot of negative orientation from the past. So the consequence of which we have entrenched negative practices that we need to actually deal with. Looking at it critically, we do not have a problem with the framework, be it institutional or legal. Everything is in place. When you talk of representation, we have all the laws, whether nationally, regionally, or internationally, that protect and promote the rights of either youth or women. So the framework is not really a problem. But where we have the problem is the entrenched practices that we need to revisit. For instance, to what extent is our correction facility even supporting the fight against corruption? When you take someone to prison, for instance, does he come out better or worse? To what extent is the National Youth Service Scheme even discouraging corrupt practices? Or in the alternative, how is it promoting national unity? Now you send out vulnerable young people to different locations in this country to serve, only for them to become hunted by predators. When you see a copper walking on the street, the first thing you think about is, if you're a guy, once you toast her, she will agree because she's vulnerable. So are these entrenched practices actually good for us? Do we need to revisit them? To what extent is our educational system actually helping us to fight corruption in this country? For example, we have a distance learning system that is coming up across universities. But do you know the unfortunate thing? NYSC will not even allow them to go and serve after the program. Why? Because they said it is an excluded program. And this is the time where we are promoting entrepreneurship. Why don't you allow young people and women to work from home and study from home, after which they are given the opportunity to go for NYSC, serve and benefit and contribute to national development. Hamzat mentioned the issue of family values. These are fundamental issues. To what extent are we studying our family coloration in such a way that it will reduce even the exposure of corruption? Is it still good for us to continue to have people marrying without any restrictions from the law? And also giving birth to countless number of children, which they end up pushing to the society, the product of which are supposed to be the leaders of tomorrow, whom we are supposed to catch young within their comfort zones, push them to society, only for them to turn out to be negative influence on the society. So these are fundamental issues. I think importantly, we need to promote the dignity of the human person. Whether you are at the leadership or you are at the followership, you need to understand that the social contract requires you to promote the dignity of the human person. And once that is done, I assure you that the youth and women population of this country, you will be able to actually command the loyalty and respect that we desperately need for this country to thrive. Thank you.
Well said, Professor. We now move into the interactive session, and this is where the panelists will take questions from members of the audience. Thank you for staying up to this stage. Also, it might be a comment or a suggestion that you have, but be mindful of time, and please try to ask one question and also one comment. Introduce yourself, tell us your name, your constituency, and then you can go ahead. I don't know if there's anybody that can help us with microphones, because I already see people eagerly raising up their hands. Once we get microphones, I'll start calling. Yes, please give it to the man. Yes, thank you. So, and if you have a question, let us know to which member of the panel that question is directed to.
Okay. Let me stand on the existing protocol, please. And this one, you said my question should be just directed to one person, only one question. I wanted to ask 2 questions.
Okay, we give you that liberty, sir.
All right, thank you. My name is Chukwemeka Chukuma from West Buloa Anti-Corruption Reporting Network, 1. And my question goes first of all to the member of the House, that place. You were asking them what the House is doing to see that corruption is, reduced to barest minimum. And she talked about what they have been doing. But I want to find out, actually, is there any particular thing that the members of the House are doing to show example of being corrupt-free? Because when we begin to hear about budget padding and all the things that we used to hear, and if ICPC will be very honest with us, you will find out that they have traced some of this issue of corruption to the members of the parliament. And when you track those things to them, are they showing good example that will make the younger ones to learn from them? Or are they actually helping the younger ones to become bad?
Okay, question number 2.
Question number 2 goes to the young girl that is in the midst there, who made a comment of not allowing the way women dress to cause a person to harass them, that the problem is in the harasser, not in the person that is being harassed. Men are wired different from women. And anybody that is selling a particular product shows what he's selling. If somebody is a marketer of TomTom, he will be showing TomTom. Buy TomTom, buy TomTom. When somebody is showing nakedness, it shows that the person is marketing nakedness. And she calls it indecent dressing. And when you talk something is indecent, is it something to be encouraged or something to be discouraged? I want her to join to help us clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can we have the lady next to him?
Thank you very much. My name is Mrs. Chinyere Anyam. Mrs. Anyam Chinyere.
Mrs. Anyam.
From the National Assembly. My question goes to the ICPC, Madam. Everybody knows that all across the nations of the world, there are corruptions. There is no nation that does not have corruption problem. But the difference is the way the enforcers, the government agencies that are in charge of catching these people and prosecuting them, That is the difference in their attitude. So my question is, most of us know that the problem in this country, those that are in charge of catching this, prosecuting this, investigating these corruption practices and corruption problems are part of the corruption. Our problem is those that are supposed to enforce the law are part of the problem. They are the ones that are even carrying out the corruption cases. Like my brother said, there are some cases they write reports, they write petitions. It's supposed to be the duty of these agencies to investigate, but they will bring you to come and do the investigation. And sometimes when these people go behind and bribe in quotes, these people that are fighting this corruption or supposed to prosecute these corruption cases, the case will die a natural death.
Okay.
So my question is, what are the process of recruiting the staff of these agencies?
Okay.
The recruitment process. Who are these people that are in charge? What are their ethics? What are their background that fights this corruption? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we go to my right. There is the man in suit, in black suit there. There's a microphone behind you, sir.
Sir, my name is Hassan Salihu. Hassan Salihu.
Okay.
From ICPC. Of all I will say here is my personal opinion and not that of the ICPC. Economic empowerment, women economic empowerment, it is inseparable with corruption. So in this case, I want to request that what has the government been doing in trying to make the economic empowerment of this country free from corruption? An example of it is this: the issue of humanitarian ministry or humanitarian agency, of which the government posted a lot of grants and money to fight economic weakness. But at the end of the day, I can see an example of Natasha, senator, of a video going around, that what she has done in empowering the women and youth, it is really wonderful. So how could this be replicated in the issue of humanitarian ministry so that we can have little resources, empowering more women and youth? Number two, sir, this is my opinion and not that of the ICPC. The Yahoo boys should not be imprisoned, but they should be rehabilitated. The rehabilitation should be in line with what Professor Bashir is saying, that we need to empower them, converting their negative power to positive in order to make our country better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a hand up at the back on the right there. Please give him the microphone.
Thank you so much, sir. My name is Shiwa Nenga. I work with Accountability Lab Nigeria. And my question is directed to the ICPC and the honorable member on the panel. So when we speak about integrity and accountability, it has both the supply and the demand side. And from the discussion so far, it seems to me the emphasis is that the youth and women should be able to live and demand accountability. Now, experiences, especially in the course of this year, have shown that there is a whole lot of suppression and intimidation of the youth. For instance, one Ojukwu in May was picked for publishing a contract that was awarded to a restaurant to build a school that never existed anywhere. He was picked because he exposed this. A few months ago, another journalist was picked. Sometime last week, a young man from Taraba State was taken and imprisoned by a wife of a senator because he reported that the roads in the constituency are bad. What safeguards do we have to protect youth who are willing to live the life of integrity and to expose cases of corruption within the Nigerian society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator and the participants. My name is Professor Titus Ibekwe. I am the Provost College of Health Sciences, University of Abuja. I'm representing Professor Aisha Mekudi, the current Vice Chancellor. And just like the ICPC person said, this is my personal opinion and not hers. One, the first question goes to Madam Ogogo. Ma, I want to know, as simple as this question may be, why is it that your offices are represented in 22 states of the Federation? What happened to the other 15 states? Are they corruption-free? Now, to the member of the House of Rep. Ma'am, what's your opinion about the issue of collapsing the bicameral system into unicameral system? Because a lot has been said about that as a way of helping to curb corruption in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Please go to the back. There's a man in the... Wait. We will come to you. Wait. Give it to... So, it's not by force, huh? It's not by force. Raise up your hands. We will take as many questions as we can take. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My sincere apologies to the female folks. So, Mike, I will be asking a question because I'm kind of sensing some tension around.
Please introduce yourself,
Yeah,
sir.
my name is Kingsley Atang. I work for Youth Alive Foundation. I'm actually getting a sense of if any woman should be indecently dressed and she's attracted to being a victim of sexual harassment. I think it's an issue of moral discipline because if for anyone that does not have that moral discipline, no matter who you see, I live in a place where, in fact, Ademola Crescent, you know, if you drive there in the night, there are some certain things you would see. Does not merely mean that you have to stop there and harass or do whatever it is that you want to do that is indecent. So we need to be able to balance this because integrity is a counter culture to corruption. My question is to my madam there, Mrs. Adasu there. So I have a question around sustaining interventions from development partners around addressing the issue of corruption. Some time ago, Youth Alive Foundation worked with you in order to ensure, so I'm more particularly about the monitoring of the projects in different states. We're part of and we saw some of the alarming results. And we also know that some of those culprits are even in government offices today. So how is the ICPC ensuring that these reports we are getting, and we have been able to indict some government officials? We don't want to mention name here. One of them is holding one of the highest office in the state, in the country today, and was indicted in that report. And we still see them in government offices. What is the institution doing to address this issue? Thank you.
Thank you. So you were all shouting now. Now your hands are down. Okay, give the lady in black.
Good afternoon, Mr. Good afternoon. Permit me to stand by the existing protocol. My name is Huela Mohammed Ibrahim. I'm the national chairperson of the Nigerian Bar Association Women Forum. Mine is rather an observation and concern, and it goes to the honorable member on the panel. My concern is, so at the last administration, about 15 bills of women, 15 bills that are related to the concerns of women were not passed. And we are sitting here and a member that is supposed to be a member that is charting the cause of women and children because we are at their mercy. I don't think that is my own opinion anyways, but for somebody holding a very high position that is making laws for women and actually creating excuse for indecent dressing, just like the other person that spoke, it's actually about morality and what have you, but I don't think it's an excuse for saying somebody is indecently dressed. Going by international practice, I don't think dressing is actually even a modus operandi of sexual violence whatsoever. So I'm really, really concerned about that coming from somebody that is high up there. So that's my only concern, and I think this is something that should be looked at, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So please give it to...
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Sadia Sule, and I'm the Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association Women Forum. I just have a question. Now, there's this increment in crime rate for women, and I want to ask, what is being done to prevent that increment? Now, let me give an example. A few years back, we went to prisons, 3 prisons for legal clinic. And I think in each of the prisons, you will see 1 inmate that's a woman. But last year, I went to 1 prison in Suleja, and there were 45 women in the prison for committing, 50% of them was for capital offenses. So, and there's this increment, it keeps growing, it's going up. What are we going to do to prevent that from happening? Women are not known to be committing crimes, so there must be something triggering or something going on that we all have to look into. We have to look into it because the rate is becoming very, very high. So what is being done to discourage from the grassroots level? What is being done to discourage that from happening? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please come to the front. The lady in glasses. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Professor Philomena Ozueson. Presently, I'm a visiting professor at NUC. My comment is personal. I'm not speaking for NUC, I'm speaking for myself. And also, the comment I'm going to make has to do with research. This topic is particularly interesting to me because I'm a professor of criminology, and these are the things that we teach students always. So I'm particularly interested in all of the discussions here, but I will just start with please pardon me, I will just start with the lady from the National Assembly. Just as the other colleague mentioned, I'm a little worried when you mentioned about indecent dressing, because I expected, all these police, that is what they usually bring when they are looking at these issues, but I didn't expect it to come from you. Because from my research, I have seen cases where a father, they rape their daughters. Security men, drivers, they molest 2 years old, 3 years old. So are you telling me that those people, those children, a baby of 3 months, 6 months, is not well dressed, and that is why they are raised, So I also want to say many of your discussion is like what we call blaming the victim in sociology. You are talking of the youth, they should work hard, they should do this and that. In this country now, how many of the youths have opportunity? In our time, in the 80s, in the 70s, when you are from a poor family and you are very brilliant, you will have scholarship. You know, money was not a barrier if you are brilliant. But today, no matter how brilliant you are, if you don't know a senator or a governor or something, there is no chance for you.
Or a professor.
Yeah. So, again, when you are talking, the lady that, the young lady, I think I commend you because many of the things you said are very commendable. But I just want to add to it that when they were saying, how do you create, how do you bring equality? Of course, you have to do it with education. Many of us that are here today, it's because we are educated. You know, if you want to bring equality in society, the woman must be educated. You know, you don't, I know the origin why you don't have so many women in high place opportunity is because of the colonial legacy that denied women education. So you have very few women who were educated, but things are changing. And I believe that when things improve, we have more women there. And again, when you look at corruption, you can classify them into right from 1986, you know, Otite, you know, classify corruption into different sections. You have political corruption, you have economic corruption, you have bureaucratic corruption, you have judicial corruption, and moral corruption. So please, these are very important because we came here to enlighten the individuals so that when we leave here, we know what we are talking about. So,
Prof, you still have a textbook.
Just 1 second.
Okay.
You know, we cannot fight the issue of corruption if we do not take a holistic view about it. What are the policies? The policies of the government today, are they encouraging the corruption or not? You know, the way people are living, the cost of living in the society and all that. And also, if you want to address the issue of corruption, you want to prevent corruption, corruption must be punished. You know, recently there was this...
Prof, I have to stop you there. Apologies. I have to stop you there. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. We will all enroll in your school to come and learn more. Please, the lady sitting behind Prof there.
Permit me to stand on all the existing protocol. I want to speak as a mother and a woman that is always on the street. I am speaking for myself. My name is Comfort Ahua, the National Newsletter Editor for National Council for Women's Society, Nigeria. For me, corruption, I look at corruption as sickness. And when we say sickness, what is the cure? There is room for us to identify what the problem is, the root cause of this corruption we are all talking about. Every one of us in this room, I will point to you, we are all part of this corruption. Why did I say so? We have so many less privileged children on the street that have no one to lay a helping hand on them. We push them. When a child is hungry, that child can go extra mile to feed his or her stomach. So, what am I saying? If actually we want to fight corruption, then we'll go back to the drawing board. Those days when mothers are mothers, whatever you do, you look at your child welfare first. We don't go after money and forget the upbringing of our children. If we raise our children well, this issue of corruption will not sit here and be talking about it. We've been saying this thing every day, corruption, corruption. What is the way forward? Government policies, every day, theory, theory, theory. Let's practicalize it. Let's go back to those days when we had technical schools that will empower the children. When a child graduates from just secondary school, that child will be able to make a seat for somebody to sit in. When you are busy, your heart will not have room for negative things. But when you are idle,
your mind will go to so many things to keep you going. So please, my word here today, our secondary school, we should go back to technical education where we empower both female and male children. That is our way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I can see one or two of the students' union presidents raising up their hands. Can you give it to the young lady in glasses first? Oh, they both have glasses. Okay, give it to, they're both wearing glasses. Okay, yes.
Thank you very much. Permit me to stand on the already existing protocol. My question is to ICPC.
Please introduce yourself again.
My name is Blessing Alims, the SUG President, University of Calabar. We noticed that cybercrime is on the increase. What is ICPC doing to curtail that? And do we have measures on how to recruit these young men to work for Nigerians? Because trust me, before you would engage in cyber crimes like the Yahoo guys, they are very intelligent. And yet, can Nigeria utilize those men? And the second question I ask myself when I think in that direction, would these young men want to learn? Would they want to come down and accept that they want to be trained? Yes, I believe they will accept if due measures are put in place. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we take two more questions. Okay, I can see somebody, the permanent secretary. Please come and give it to the permanent secretary. So we can't take everybody, so please, apologies if we don't take you. We can't take everybody.
Thank you, sir. I am not the PS, but representative of the Director General of NYSC.
Okay.
Let me commend the panelists for their contributions so far. And I want to react to a statement made by Professor Magashi. I hope I'm correct with the name. Talking about youth corps members being vulnerable. This is a platform for us to also enlighten ourselves. Yes, there's corruption everywhere, and all of us know that. But at the same time, it is good we enlighten ourselves, especially concerning the statement about corps members. Knowing that we move corps members out of their comfort to areas where they may not have been before, we have a process and procedure in place that enables them to have support when they have challenges, irrespective of what it is. And this is why the first thing we do is to call them into the orientation camp for 3 weeks, where they are enlightened about the service, where they are enlightened about the processes and procedures, where they are given relevant contacts that they may need when they have challenges. And concerning posting to places of primary assignment, when you leave camp, you are given a posting letter, which also contains the contact. Like I said earlier, we have offices in all the 774 local government areas. You are given posting to a place of primary assignment based on requests, and sometimes their own personal requests. And when you report there, you have a challenge and you are rejected. What you are expected to do is go back to your LGI who resides in that local government area. It is his responsibility now to repost you. But we have instances where some of them have somewhere else in mind, and they will decide to go up and down and lobbying here and there. It is not that there is no support system in place. It is because that person prefers to go his own way. And be that as it may be, and in future when you see such people, go onto our website. We have all our contacts, the state coordinators in all the states of the federation. Make the call. Let them know that a core member has a challenge and they will do the needful. I just said we should enlighten ourselves on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, please let me give it to. I understand that's from immigration. Please go ahead.
I am Anya Budike Victoria, SCI. I would like to commend everybody that have contributed to this event that we are in. Mine is just, let me say it's a contribution. I'm talking about involving people. And when I talk about involving people, I mean this issue of creating awareness, telling people to fight corruption. And when people are being convinced, when people see that honestly a genuine fight is on the way to fight corruption, they will believe and they will give everything they want to combat the corruption. But where I'm coming in here is the law enforcement agents. How do they create opportunities or open up to people to be able to come and give them information? So I am pleading that in as much as we are here talking, the law enforcement agencies, they should provide opportunities for them to express their views on this fight of corruption. People will be willing to give out information. But when they are scared to give out information, nothing will come up. They will be hiding because they know that they are not protected. If people know that they are protected, I'm telling you, they will give information and they will be willing to fight corruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that there are some principals and school teachers on the far right there. Can one of their representatives kindly speak? And then we have in the front row there, yes, from...
Okay, I have the mic then.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so permit me to stand on the existing protocols. My name is Dr. Awa Ibrahim. I'm from Nasarawa State University, Deputy Director of Research and Innovation. And I'm here to represent my Vice Chancellor, Professor Saada Tuliman. But like my previous colleagues had earlier said, these are my opinions and not hers. I've listened to all the panelists and most of the questions, and I'm happy that I'm not the only academia here. We have a couple of professors and even the Vice Chancellor represented. And no doubt, we know, okay, the Dean is also there. We had listened to all of you. It's all about the institution, the educational institution, and what we are doing, and the bashing on sexual exploitation among students. Yes, we know we are mothers. We know we have fathers, we are educators. We have a role to play in educating and ensuring we protect these young ones. And Nigerian students are here. My university, I speak for my university, we are not ignorant, we are not pretending that it doesn't exist. It exists. But corruption in the university system even goes beyond sexual exploitation. And we have tried in my university to really reduce it. And I think I speak for other universities. I think it's really not that bad. Not that every case of corruption is not a big deal. It's a very big deal. But we have whistleblowing, we have ethics in educational system, in a university, and even secondary school. It's a formal institution. There are ethics and code of conduct, and we follow that seriously. So beyond that, I said that education in institution, corruption in institution goes beyond the sexual exploitation. But the question we should ask, or what begets our thought as academians or as educators, is the fact that we are faced with this uncomfortable truth that most of these high-level corrupt practices are from professionals that have been through our institution. That is, we have chartered accountants, we have lawyers. They are educated people that are actually practicing high-level corruption, whether nepotism, whether bribery, or diversion of government funds, and that makes us to think as academics or as educators, what is the relationship or the correlation between education and corrupt practices? So we need to now redefine the questions we are asking. How do we fight corruption? To the causes of corruption. We have been talking about or having these discussions, I think, for too long. How do we fight corruption? We can go back to the drawing book on what are the root causes of this corruption. And I would just want to speak on two. One, looking at youths. First, the education system or the institution that we emphasize on. We deliver knowledge, but we have for too long emphasized on just the knowledge. The education we give out is knowledge, skills, character, morals, and even culture. Except you have these 5 components put together, you are just an educated illiterate. So we cannot give you the knowledge and the skills, and then you don't have that cultural background. Now that takes us to a lot of young people. This Western gratification, I'm not against globalization, but we have to balance it with cultural perspective. We have culture, and we can't separate morals and culture. We can't separate integrity, respect, and culture. Even back then, in the books, when we read stories, it's not about women dressing indecently. The men also, the boys we have in my school, they also dress a sack trouser. It is not from Ifik to Fulani. It is not in our culture. It's a Western gratification, and the youths must come to terms with it. When you dress decently, whether they are dressing it for, you are not for the harasser or the harassment who is causing it, it's not a cause and effect issue. It's respect. And all of this cannot be separated. Respect, morals, ethics, and values. And these are all rooted in family values. So please, we have culture. We also have, even to how we should eat with elders. It's part of some of our culture, maybe in the north. When you are eating with elders, you don't take the meat. How does that translate into public offices? If you can't control your appetite with food, you can't say no to money. So these are how culture translates to our characters and our behaviors, and we can't separate the two. Now, okay, just one more point.
Yes.
Just one more thing. Hold on. How do we solve the problem? What do we do differently? To whom much is given, much is expected. I know we are tired of hearing that we blame the government a lot of times. We are not blaming the government this time. Well, I'm not blaming. I'm saying that, can we have a redefined approach where the government sees it as give and take? Give me a value, and I will give you back integrity. Give me a reason to be patriotic as a policeman on the street. Give me a reason to be patriotic as a rural woman. The population we are talking about, 70% of that population lives in rural areas. What do we have in those rural areas? In terms of education, in terms of healthcare services, how do you expect to curb down corruption in that area if you do not invest? So I'm not talking of empowerment. We do not understand how far empowerment can go in economics, in reducing poverty. But we're talking about investment in infrastructure.
I'm sorry, Doctor. Because of time,
okay,
we will have to stop here.
So my point here is, yes, please.
Your point.
Okay, sorry. All right, all I'm saying is culture plays a role, and we cannot take it out.
Yes,
and we are not the only educators.
We have to wrap up quickly because some of our brothers and sisters have to go for their prayers. And if you want the panelists to respond to all that you have said, we will just take the last person there and then answers quickly. Please go ahead, sir. Please make it very short.
Yeah, it's going to be very short. I am teacher Comrade Muhammad Ahmad Muhammad, the principal of GSS Piakasa. All have been said. The speaker has spoken. Most of us have contributed a lot. And I just feel that we are still saying the same thing. The issue is which way forward. The government have been playing its role, getting to the extent of establishing this big body called ICPC. And we at the grassroots, the secondary school level, we know what it takes. We know what we are passing through. And this lead us to establish all the schools in FCT having ICPC clubs where children have been discussed. We share them into groups, talk about corruption, how do we cope up corruption. It involves all of us, the community, the royal houses.
So thank you very much, sir.
And I want to stand by saying,
no, sir.
I want to support this
sir.
issue of government policies that
hello,
6334
sir.
education system.
Just
so
a minute.
I want to reframe it that we should know where we are coming from and we should know where we are going to.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will quickly answer, starting with the Mrs. Honorable Ahmadi from the Federal House of Representatives.
Thank you very much. I want to address FIDA, representative of FIDA. When I talked about sexual harassment being a two-way problem and that we should address also the issue of indecent dressing. We're talking about the university. I was in the University Faculty of Law, and in most cases, when these cases come up, we punish the offenders. I'm not saying that we don't punish them. We do, but I'm talking about one of the factors is indecent dressing of students in the universities. Thank you very much. Then secondly, there are bills that were passed in the 9th Assembly, but they were not signed into law. We don't sign the laws. We make and submit. If they are not passed, there's nothing we can do. We are in the process of representing them back to the executive for assent. Which other case? Talking about
I think ICPC Mrs. Ogugwa can quickly respond to, because many questions also come to you.
Yes, sir. The first question by Mrs. Sanyim about ICPC staff and their code of ethics. I want to say that ICPC has a very strict policy for staff code of conduct, and that we follow that. Staff are recruited. How they are recruited is the normal way recruitment is done. But the important thing is not everybody that comes as a rough person, like a rough diamond. We are all polished via training. We have been trained, retrained, overtrained, trained, and trained again. So if there is any problem with any staff, any particular staff, because I don't want all the staff are not corrupt. You cannot just lump all of us together. But when we invite you, maybe you write a petition and you are invited to come and give more details. Most of the time we invite petitioners to come and give more information because some petitions are very scanty. If you are invited to come and give more information, it's not an opportunity for you to say something is going on. If not, the case might not have any merit in court. It might not hold up in court. We might not have enough to go on. But if there is any particular instance of a staff asking for or being unprofessional, please report. I am the head of the Servicom unit. Any complaint about staff behavior is of interest to the commission, and we will take it up. The chairman will get to hear about this, and something will be done. There is a very strict code of ethics for staff. Another question for ICPC had to do with why 21 state offices. So, Professor Ibekwe is not here. We started with 2, actually. It's a continuous improvement. We are improving. We start, we equip, and we try to consolidate on ground before we move to other states. So we have just moved to 21 states from 15 states. And so we are hoping to get to all 36 states. But don't be afraid. Our presence in 21 states doesn't mean that we don't cover the 36 states. We cover all the states, but we want to consolidate and be on ground fully. And any state that does not have an ICPC office is covered by the nearest state office to it. So we cover all the states. Another question about monitoring of projects, sustaining interventions. We work with other partners. It's not only ICPC. Like a question about cybercrime. What is ICPC doing about cybercrime? It's not only about ICPC. We have the EFCC. We have other anti-corruption agencies, and we collaborate. The fight against corruption is not a one-agency fight. And we have to say it. ICPC believes in collective action against corruption. And so wherever there is any aspect of corruption that we do not handle directly, we call on our sister agencies, we work with our sister agencies, And we work together to make sure that aspect is handled. Blaming the victim, okay, that's not my question. Cybercrime on the increase.
Okay, so thank you,
So
Mrs.
many
Ogugwa.
questions.
You've done justice to the questions.
I think the
So
major
let me
questions.
just thank Mr. Amzat Lawal, who had to leave us. Omaomi Ogunrotimi, thank you so much for your contributions. Professor Magashi, thank you so much. Honorable Mrs. Amadi, thank you so much. And Mrs. Azuka Ogugwa, thank you so much. So,
Sorry, sir, that I have to breach this protocol briefly. One of the major stakeholders for this event is the National Council for Women's Society. Okay. And they have said they want to be captured in the communique. They want their contribution to be captured. That if it is not captured, then they have failed all the women of Nigeria. So please, if we can allow them just 1 minute to say something. National Council of Women's Society, please.
Let me stand on existing protocol. My name is Hajia Binta Suleiman Ibrahim, the second Vice President, National Council for Women's Societies. Mine is just clarification to the Dean. On the quota system we talked about, I know that, yes, earning is justified, but due to corruption, if it's left, the vulnerable group, if they are left just for earning, they will not be able to participate meaningfully. What am I saying? I'm looking at women and youth should be given a quota in all systems that we run in the country. If it means that at that quota, it should be divided. Maybe the women can now contest on their own. Having, for example, if we have 30%, okay, let it be thrown out to the women. And on their own, they can now contest and then get the earn it. But saying that it should just be left open, it will be given to the highest bidder, and that's where the corruption comes in. And that is one. Then the second, I'm appealing to ICPC. We have a platform, like I said, 774 local governments, we participate there. We are not just good for mobilization. If you want to get the best results, you should engage us in implementation, because we work from the grassroots, and that is where you expect to catch them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your attentiveness, for your very keen participation. We apologize to those of you who couldn't take their comments or questions. It's absolutely impossible to take everybody, given the time constraints we're all working under. Thank you. Please give the panelists a very warm round of applause. And also, thank you, because without all of you sitting here, listening to us, and engaging us, this exercise will have been futile. So the greater thanks and appreciation goes to all of you in the audience. Thank you very much.
Resounding round of applause for the moderator and the panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, moderator and panelists, if you do us the honor of stepping down for a picture, please. Gently, gently. All right. We would pause and go for we are going to have a little break. By the time we come back, it will be for the communique to be read to us, and after that, our lunch would be served. We are taking this break to stretch our legs and to allow those who are going for prayers to pray and come back. So we expect that we return to this hall in 10 minutes. The time is 2 o'clock, so 10 minutes past 10 we shall come back. And lunch has been done in such a way that it will not take time at all. As you come, you're seated, we'll tell you how to get your lunch. It has been packed, beautifully packed. You just take it and you go. We're not sitting down to eat. You'll not be looking for spoons or where the water is. No. You just take it and you go. So please, 10 minutes to stretch our legs and say our prayers. Or 15 minutes. 15 minutes, please. So 2:15, we should be back here. Thank you. Also, the following civil society organizations should please see the people at the registration desk at the back. You need to supply some vital information. Corruption Tracker Initiative, Youth Anti-Corruption Society, Gender Mobile, African Council on Narcotics, Social Action Integrated Center. Others have submitted these details. So if you heard your name, please see them at the registration desk to supply some details. Thank you.